Okay, thank you. So I'm Antti Virtanen and I'm happy to be here. And before we start, I promise that my daughter is free to draw mustaches and whatever decorations she wants to anyone who falls asleep during this presentation. She's eager to do that. So please try to stay awake unless you want some decorations. Anyway, I'm the security chief in Solita, and I haven't been in that position for long, about 6 months or so. I used to be a programmer and developer for about 20 years in all sorts of positions. And on my free time, I'm a hacker at a hacker team, ROT. So I kind of break into things on my free time, and as my day job, I try to keep the hackers out of our systems, which is kind of sometimes leads to funny situations. And that's my background briefly. And when we talk about in this presentation, we talk about cyber attacks and hackers and such. It's important to understand that we are talking about these guys. So we are not talking about script kiddies in this case. We are basically talking about professional criminals like Igor and Volodya. As you can see, they have some expensive hobbies. So they need to finance those hobbies somehow. And then that's the point. They want money. And they don't really want to infiltrate your network or take over your computer. If they can access the data somehow without doing that, it's fine for them. And they are not so interested in actually owning anything. It's a side effect. And the good old game of owning the networks and going in and going for the domain controller and all that, it's not working very well anymore. Because actually, software has become much more secure than it used to be. And people are aware of these attacks. People know what the phishing campaign is and what it looks like. And the IT administrators especially are awake if they are present. Some organizations seem to think that security chiefs are not so necessary and they can be fired, and that's interesting. And there are also those nasty obstacles that weren't there earlier. We have antivirus and all sorts of IDS filters and spam filters which prevent the phishing email to go through and so on. So they are actually adapting their playbook, and I will explain briefly. And this is not my first warning about these cloud things. And some of these things for the past 3 years have been kind of obvious trends. Like I have been talking about that the cloud will present new kind of threats, and you need some kind of process, and I have been talking about how developers are actually a valid attack vector to infiltrate the customer's network, because the direct attack to the customer's network has become more difficult. And we have seen these supply chain attacks and developer attacks. And if you don't have a process, you have a valid technical things like you are using SSH keys to access the cloud, and you have firewalls and all that. But if you don't have a process, then your ex-employees still have the SSH keys because you don't actually know who had these keys and so on. So you need the process, not just technology. This was one of my warnings. And this was another, that increasingly the developers are relying on third-party code from NPM repositories or whatnot. And actually, we don't know anything about these people who develop these libraries. There was a recent article about NPM that there's about 20 or so developer accounts which are super critical to the security of the whole JavaScript NPM ecosystem. And what do we know about these 20 accounts, about their operational security and their owners? I don't actually know anything. Maybe you do. But we kind of have to trust them, and this is kind of awful. But I hate to be right on this, but it seems that everything is proceeding as I've predicted. I wouldn't want to be right about this. I think some kind of solution will emerge at some point in the future because everyone else is seeing this same picture. So now the world has, however, changed. So we will look into the next 3 years, how it looks from my perspective. And this software as a service is the new order that will destroy the old world. So it seems, at least, if you are a SaaS man. And from now onwards, it seems that people are increasingly working on the cloud. They might not be even aware of it, because everything seems to be uploading itself into the cloud, even if you don't want it to upload in the cloud. And it's not just that you have 20 different cloud systems you are using, they are all now interconnected. There are integrations and even two-way integrations. So there's not just a push notification from something, there's also push notification and you can command it back from Slack or something like that. So when you have a lot of these two-way integrations and a lot of systems, it becomes quite difficult to reason how it actually works. And then there's this great thing that the stupid IT administrators who don't understand the business needs, they are not in charge of these things. Because now the business can just use their company credit card and easily take into use some new great cloud platform thing. And it's so easy that they don't need the IT department. They just need the credit card. And the IT department has been bypassed, and the business is driving this thing. And also the developers are, because they can do the same. And this has created new targets, obviously. Like you have seen a lot of news about public S3 buckets, which have contained some pretty sensitive data in some cases. Then there has been new things like, obviously, like if you have virtual hard disks on AWS, you can also accidentally make them public. And then you are sharing your SSH keys and who knows what, your bitcoins. And people are searching for these public storage volumes in AWS at the moment. And it might be interesting to look into this, because you might not be technically even breaking any laws if you just download a public hard disk from the internet. And these are basically misconfigurations. And then there are a lot of other misconfigurations. You can mess up with GitHub. We have seen plenty of examples of this already. Domain hijacking is also a kind of misconfiguration, because you have a DNS server which points to some place, and you don't have a corresponding record in that other place. So it's also one type of misconfiguration. And we have this thing that everything now has an API of some kind. It's not just that you have to protect your username and password, you have to protect the API keys somehow. And we are not doing a very good job at that as a community at the moment. And the account hijacks have become more interesting, because if you can access someone's email, you can reset the password in every service, and there are a lot of services, and you can just hijack everything if you can access the email. And not surprisingly, the attack playbook has changed. Since there are new ways to attack, we have a lot of automated tools that can find these things. And actually, Solita launched a kind of tool which we are selling to our customer, which basically automates this kind of stuff. It finds stuff that you would want to be aware of, that you have accidentally leaked into the internet somehow. And these cloud-based deployments create totally new kinds of threats. I especially like this SSRF thing. I'm going to show you a few examples of it soon. And Does everybody understand why server-side request forgery is dangerous? Who of you fear the server-side request forgery? Nobody. Oh, so it sounds innocent. You can use the client to tell that the server should make an HTTP GET request to some other server. So what's so bad about that? It doesn't sound very bad at all. And I was in this OWASP meeting, and this guy who has created OWASP application security verification standard, he said this in his presentation, and this resonated with me so loudly that I immediately wanted to take it. And this is the old trick from 2 years ago. So in this case, there's a parameter where you can inject the JavaScript, and whatever you inject here gets actually processed by the server side, and you are not doing a GET request to HTTP URL, you are actually just accessing a file in the local system. And this is the PDF generator, so it actually puts the contents of the file or the result of the request to the response it sends to the client. But this is not a cloud-based attack. This is just something that might be a bit surprising if you think that server-side request forgery is not that bad. Who of you did know about this kind of attack vector before? Some people. But this is a local attack. You are attacking the server and you are accessing local files. And funnily, these two guys are experts, world-class hackers. And they said that whenever they see a PDF generator, they immediately want to attack that because they have seen that 9 out of 10 are vulnerable. It might take them a lot of time to find the vulnerability, but they know that it's there. And they will find it. And I have personally also seen these similar vulnerabilities when we have attacked systems in Team ROT. But unfortunately, I cannot show you the details of those. But I know that this is real. And it's not overly difficult to find these things. So let's look at the cloud-based SSRF. So here's an example. Basically, they were able to access the API metadata through the server-side request forgery. The metadata wasn't available from the internet. It was only visible to the inner network where the server was located. And it's not very technical if you read the report. And eventually they were able to get access. They got private keys and they got access to all the servers in this cloud-based deployment, root access to everything. And it's a very, very simple software bug. Just one GET request, which accidentally gets sent to somewhere and they get the reply back. Very simple request, and suddenly your whole cloud-based environment was owned. They got a $25,000 US for this bug finding. And this is the reason why SSRF is the new hotness, because the landscape has changed. You are not anymore attacking the local server. You are attacking the AVS deployments, the EC2 instances, and so on. And you might get a lot of reward if you are successful. But suppose that we just patch these things and there's no SSRF. Can we win this competition? Well, we can't, because then there's the business people and the phishing attacks and so on. So, for example, if the phishing email doesn't ask you to run this great Office macro thing, it just asks that, please give me a permission for this document in Google Drive. It doesn't look so suspicious, but you can do a lot of things because everything is in the cloud. So if you get access, you can send more share requests and add more accounts there, and maybe if there are integrations to other systems, you can attack those other systems and so on. And no amount of technical patching will help against this kind of attacks. And I will show you some real-life examples of these attacks shortly. I think this is the more interesting part of this presentation, but I needed that background so that you can see the implications and reflect on this on your own context. One important disclaimer here: don't go testing anything unless you have a permission, because if you kind of test something, it's illegal in Finland and in most other countries also. I just want to say this because it's sometimes so tempting to test something. And one other thing, I would greatly appreciate if you don't take any photographs of the next slides, because I'm going to show you real-life examples of how things can fail. And then, of course, you can just hope that the IT and security department will just make things right, and they will bite some technical gimmick, and then everything will be okay. And it doesn't really work like that. Yes, you can take a picture of this if you want. Yeah. I think this picture is from Russia, where they actually blessed this operation center officially. But that won't really work so well, because we have these things called cloud access security brokers. It's a product that actually tries to do what these Google suites should do in the first place, but you have to buy a third-party product that does this configuration lookups and other things that Google and other cloud vendors don't give to their users. But they won't save you, because the IT is not in control. If the IT and security don't even know that you have some cloud application in use, it's impossible to secure it in any way or monitor it in any way. And it's quite clear to me that this situation can't continue like it is. The business is constantly taking into use new cloud-based tools, uploading data, creating these integrations, and the developers are doing the same. And if this continues, we will have a security incident every week. And that's impossible. And this is the same for other organizations as well. And I have some solutions for the previous problem, but they are not interesting to developers, and so I'm not going to talk about them here. But as developers, you have some power over this issue and these things. When you are designing these systems, make sure that you understand these implications of these cloud-based deployments. For example, this server-side request forgery. It's much more dangerous now than it used to be, and it will be more dangerous next year. So please understand this. And don't create unnecessary risks when you create a system. And help your users. For example, make it obvious that something is not sensible. For example, AWS has done a lot on this regard. When you create a public S3 bucket nowadays, first they will warn you that please don't do that unless you absolutely know what you are doing. And even if you click yes, they might later send you an email saying that we have noticed that you have a public S3 bucket. Are you totally okay with your medication, and is everything okay with you? They have sent me a couple of these emails because I intentionally created some public buckets with interesting names for research purposes. So I got some emails from Amazon asking that, what are these buckets you have here, like test Microsoft Bank type of names. But please help your users, because they might be doing something they don't actually want to do. And you can make functionality that will help. For example, Slack has a capability to destroy all files that are older than some threshold, so you don't accidentally accumulate a lot of data in Slack. Without that feature, it would be quite awkward to delete this manually or create some kind of script that does that. Create multi-factor authentication option for the login screen. This should be kind of obvious, but there are a lot of services where this is not possible at the moment. You just have the username and password. And this also doesn't make any sense. But these are the things that you can do as developers when you create these systems. Thank you. I think we have a few minutes for questions.
Well, thank you for this presentation. One question regarding the security of serverless. What do you think about it?
Serverless?
Yeah, I mean, for example, this AWS Lambdas, for example.
Well, it takes some headaches out of you, because you don't have to worry about like updating the operating system or patching the operating system. So overall, I think it's a great positive thing, because why would I want to worry about those things if I don't have to? I just want to run my code.
Yes. And it's fast.
Yeah.
Is it still illegal to test security of the company that you're working for? As you said that it was illegal to test, and I think it's illegal to test other companies.
We don't have a public bug bounty program, so it's illegal. But if you have something specific in mind, you can send me an email, and I can give you a permission. Let's put it that way. Okay, thank you.